Once again, hello to all my friends. Today I would like to tackle a topic that apologists love to harp on about, and this is, did Jesus have a brother James? Or more specifically, was James the brother of Jesus? And if James did have a brother, was it the Jesus of Nazareth or some other Jesus? That's why this video is titled, James the brother of the Lord Debunked. Apologists love the idea of Jesus, of there being some reference to Jesus having a brother called James, because how can there be a James if there wasn't a Jesus? Who are they referring to if they're speaking about James? So for apologists, it is critically important to have Jesus have a brother called James and to show that there is reference to it. Alright, so we know that when it comes to extra biblical sources, the go-to one is Josephus. All the others are a lot weaker, and Josephus is the one that seems to have the most strength behind it. Even though Josephus only mentions Jesus twice, the first of these mentions is the Christ passage found in Antiquities, book 18, section 63. I've done a video on this particular one before. Descriptions down at the bottom. But that's not the one I want to focus on today. The second of the mentions from Josephus is the one that refers to James, the brother of Jesus. And this is the important one. This is the only real mention of James extra biblically, and even in the Bible, as we will see, there's not much there. So let's take a look at what Josephus has to say, because he's the main source of this James, the brother of the Lord. This passage, the James passage, is found in Antiquities, book 20, section 9, and it reads as follows. Festus was now dead, and Albinus was but upon the road. So he assembled a Sanhedrin of judges, and brought before them the brother of Jesus, who was called Christ, whose name was James, and some others, or some of his companions. And when he had formed an accusation against them as breakers of the law, he delivered them to be stoned. But as for those who seemed the most equitable of the citizens, as such as were the most uneasy at the breach of the laws, they disliked what was done. They also sent to the king Agrippa, desiring him to send to Ananus that he should act so no more, for that what he had already done was not to be justified. Nay, some of them went also to meet Albinus, as he was upon his journey from Alexandria, and informed him that it was not lawful for Ananus to assemble a Sanhedrin without his consent. Whereupon Albinus complied with that, what they said, and wrote in anger to Ananus, and threatened that he would bring him to punishment for what he had done. On which King Agrippa took the high priesthood from him when he had ruled but 3 months, and made Jesus, the son of Damnius, high priest. So basically, Ananus the high priest wanted to have James, this man James, put to death for breaking the law. King Agrippa, after a little bit of kerfuffle, decided to strip him of his chief priesthood and gave it to Jesus, the son of Damnius. Alright, so back to the passage. If you remove the words, who was called the Christ, it becomes very clear that the Jesus that was the brother of the James became high priest after Ananus was removed. One of two conclusions can be drawn from this. Either Jesus, the son of Damnius, was the brother of James, in which case it's not the Jesus we're looking for, or this James was not the brother of the Jesus that we're looking for. In either case, it is obvious that the words, who was called the Christ, must have been a later interpolation. The words would probably have been added in the margin by a later scribe attempting some kind of explanation. They were, after all, Christian scribes trying to find the divinity of Jesus. This was a common practice among scribes, and the examples are plentiful. They would have, later scribes would have added this into the text, either believing to have been omitted by accident, or that it should have been included in the first place and hadn't been. This wasn't only something that happened to Josephus's writings, even though we know it did happen previously with the first passage, the Christ passage, which is widely understood to be, if not a total fabrication, at least an interpolation promoting the Christian narrative. One of the obvious reasons for this was that Josephus was an Orthodox Jew, and as such he could not have called Jesus the Christ, because Orthodox Jews didn't accept Jesus as the messianic figure, as the Christ. So he wouldn't have added it in his own writing. Another reason is that Josephus wasn't the kind of person that just made a statement, especially about something that wasn't well known. He is famous for writing prolifically, explaining new concepts, or concepts that hadn't been previously written by him. So for him to say who was the Christ, he would have included several paragraphs, if not pages, explaining what this Christ meant and what it was. The absence of this explanation shows us that it couldn't have been Josephus's hand. So, did Jesus have a brother named James? According to Galatians 19, he did. But other of the apostles saw I none, save James, the Lord's brother. It becomes really interesting when we take a look at the word brother. In Greek, the language the New Testament was written, the word is adelphos. Adelphos generally means of the same mother. But curiously, in Luke 22 verse 32, it is used as brethren. In this verse, it is clear that Jesus is not referring to Simon's blood brothers, but brothers in the spiritual faith, in the Christian faith. The same double meaning also happens in the Old Testament, in Hebrew, as the Old Testament was written, where the word is ah. In Genesis 28 verse 5, it clearly means a blood brother, and friends in Genesis 29 verse 4. So, could Paul have been referring to James as a close friend in Galatians 1 verse 19, or as an actual sibling of Jesus? In 2 Corinthians 2 verse 13, Paul refers to his traveling companion Titus as Adelphos. And I couldn't find any literature anywhere that gave any indication that Titus and Paul were actual blood brothers. In chapter 23 of book 2 of his work, Church History, Eusebius of Caesarea attributes the following words to Josephus. These things happened to the Jews to avenge James the just, who was a brother of Jesus, that is called the Christ. For the Jews slew him, although he was a most just man. Unfortunately, this passage is nowhere to be found in the oldest known writings of Josephus. So, did Jesus have a brother named James? It is based on the evidence we have. I find it highly unlikely, unless more evidence comes to light that is more substantial than the scant references we have and the interpolations and things that are added on later. We would definitely need something a bit more significant to say for certain. I tend towards probably not in the sense of a sibling, but of a brother in Christ. Certainly, all the apostles were brothers of Jesus. As always, my friends, it's been great to speak to you. Once again, I would say, if you haven't subscribed, please do, and if you have subscribed, please forward this on to somebody who hasn't. Maybe they'll find it interesting. Keep well, keep safe, and I'll look forward to speaking to you again. Bye-bye.